Hey, folks, good morning and welcome to the Minnesota Steelers Morning Rush. I'm Alan Saunders. It is Tuesday, October 7th. The Pittsburgh Steelers are getting ready to play the Cleveland Browns for their return to action after their Week 5 bye. Week 6 game at Acrisure Stadium against the team's oldest and most historic rival. And I want to talk about that rivalry today, the rivalry between the Steelers and Cleveland Browns, which feels maybe different than the reality is between these teams recently. I grew up in an era in the 1980s when the Cleveland Browns were clearly the Steelers' biggest rivals. And, that was the hated game. That was the heated game. That was the one that got everybody going. Even though the Steelers were a pretty good team for a lot of the 80s, the Browns were better. They had their best years, really, in recent memory in the late 80s. And they were the better team of that decade, for sure, between the two. The Steelers obviously the best team in the NFL in the 1970s. Before that, the Browns dominated in their matchups with the Steelers. I can recall, I think I've told this story maybe on Afternoon Drive recently, but about a year ago, I was looking up an old article for something, and I stumbled across this column from the 1960s about just how the Browns were everything that every NFL franchise should want to be, and the hopeless Steelers under the chief, we're just never going to figure it out. That this was just a comedy of errors, and look at Cleveland, look at how good they are. How could the Steelers ever hope to be as good as the Cleveland Browns? Funny how times change. The Steelers, of course, the best team in the NFL in the 70s. The Browns are still, not bad, and then very good in the 80s before, sadly, being moved to Baltimore in the 1990s. Ever since Cleveland has come back in 1999, I feel like this rivalry has been a bit of a punchline, right? The Steelers notoriously beat the Browns 43-0 in their first game back. Over the first decade of playing games, after the Browns returned, Cleveland won 3 of them. The Steelers won all the rest. There were times in there where things got tighter at times, but the Browns still have not won the season series between the teams 2-0. The last time they did that was 1988. But there have been more wins for the Browns in recent memory, particularly in Cleveland, where the Steelers have actually only won 1 of their last 5. The games between the teams in the last 3 years have been split. In 2021, the Steelers swept. 2020 and 2019 were split. The Browns also won that 2020 playoff game. So since 2019, the Steelers have won 1 more game. 2018, they tied, and the Steelers won. So a very, very even matchup. And I don't think if you ask the average Steeler fan about this week or about the Browns in general, they would talk like this rivalry has been won on even footing. Obviously, the teams have been in very different places, with the Browns sort of routinely near the bottom of the NFL standings, and then with a couple of good seasons in there. No shade to a couple of good years from Cleveland. I think it was 20 and was it 22? Were the 2 good seasons, the 2 playoff seasons where Kevin Stefanski both won the NFL Coach of the Year award. I do love the implication from the voters there that 20 and 23. If you get the Browns the playoffs, that is just, that's it. You're the Coach of the Year. Like that's incredible. But I commented yesterday about the opportunity for the Pittsburgh Steelers with the division looking like it's down, with the Ravens and the Bengals stumbling and injured, and the Steelers starting out to a big lead in the division, even though they haven't played that well yet. And the ability to, if they put things together, this team really could run away with this thing. And a lot of comments from that video and the tweet that associated with it were like, yeah, no excuses this week. And really, there shouldn't be any, right? This is a 4.5-point favorites at home against the Browns team that is 1-4, that is actually flying back from Europe this week. So while the Steelers are coming off a bye, like, it's hard to imagine a more lopsided rest/travel advantage for 2 NFL teams than what the Browns are facing this week. And yet, I don't think there should be an air of overconfidence here. The Browns have, compared to their overall quality, sort of had the Steelers' number lately. I mean, there's been years where they weren't very good at all, and they found a way to beat Pittsburgh. Now, most of those, again, have come in Cleveland. The only win in Pittsburgh in the regular season, they won in 99 and they won in 2003. And, of course, they won that playoff game. So just 3 victories in Pittsburgh since returning as a franchise in 1999. But I don't think that the Steelers should treat this as some kind of walkover game. Dylan Gabriel going to start a quarterback. Don't think much of him as an NFL prospect. Don't think the Browns made a good choice to draft him when they did. He looked okay in his first game. Kevin Stefanski is a very good coach. I joke about the Coach of the Year awards, but well-deserving. I believe I voted for him both times. I know I did last time. And so this is not going to be easy, even if the thought process is, well, they should take care of the Browns. And I'm very curious because, the Steelers didn't do great against lesser. I mean, the Jets are 0-5, and they needed every minute of that game to beat the Jets. So look, right now the Steelers are 3-1. They've played one pretty bad team, and they beat them. And they played 3 teams that look like they might have a pulse, and they beat 2 of those 3. If you do that all year, if you beat the bad teams, and even if you only go 500 against the good teams, you'll end up in a pretty good place at the end of the year. But I'm really interested to see if the Steelers are able to take care of business against what is just a very bad Browns team. Because this game, like the line being 4.5 is honestly kind of a joke. On paper, the Steelers should win this by 10, by 15. And, we don't see very many of those Steelers games, but I think it would go, look, until the Steelers beat a really good team, until they get into the heart of the schedule, Baltimore, Buffalo, Detroit, Green Bay, until they get to those games, everything is going to ring a little bit hollow. But man, wouldn't going out and beating the Browns by 20 points do a lot to make you feel better about this team's standing? That this record is not a paper construction, that there's meat behind it. On the other hand, if the Steelers need 60 full minutes to beat the Browns on the last second like they did against the Jets, man, I don't know. I don't think that's instilling 1 ounce of confidence that even the game at Cincinnati is going to go well 4 days later, let alone when the Steelers get to the tougher part of the schedule. It's much more like a college football rivalry at this point than it is an NFL rivalry, in that the Steelers are sort of expected to beat the Browns, and it's bad when they don't. It's Alabama and Auburn, right? Auburn is almost never the better team. They're just able to find a win once in a while, just enough to make that interesting, and the passion is a little bit lopsided as a result. Like, I see you guys in your little Twitter fights. There's the Browns fans still hate the Steelers just as much as the Steelers fans hated the Browns when I grew up in the 80s. The emotion is not reciprocated. And I think anytime you're in a game like that, you're in danger. And you better be playing some of your cleanest, best football to get out of it. Let me know what you guys think about the Steelers-Browns rivalry, and also include your perspective on it. Are you a fan that grew up with only the new Browns? Do you remember, like me, the old Browns? Maybe we've got some members of our audience that remember when the Browns were the very clearly better of the 2 teams. That would be awesome insight. More on Afternoon Drive after Mike Tomlin talks this afternoon. I'll be there at 6 p.m. Smitty, we're giving him the day off. He's a little under the weather. So I will have a guest host with me on Afternoon Drive at 6. So stay tuned for that. Until then, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.